You all again going live again. I'm just going to get my Instagram live on. All right. Let me just see if this is all okay. And then we will hook in and we will start. Once I get the all clear from my team that I'm all live, and I'm live. Nice. Welcome. It's good to be here, everyone. We are having a fun time today. I'm excited. We will have two of my friends and also clinicians and a student who completed Total Parenting Transformation. Sally will be joining us at 11:30. So we'll be hearing from her and what she's gotten out of the program. And I think it's just helpful if you're considering joining anything. It's always nice to hear from other people who have done it, to see what they've learned or what, ask questions of how they found it. And you can ask them questions directly, even if you wanted to. But yeah, I would just love to use this week, I guess, in helping you make a decision and helping just explain a little bit more about what we all need to be knowing as parents, and kind of filling in some of the gaps of the whole we don't know what we don't know. And so just trying to help you guys navigate that. So I thought I would just start before Sally joins us at 11:30. I thought I would just start by saying a little bit about why am I doing this? Like, what is this program about? And where it kind of started, or where it comes from, is when I learned that so many parents, so I used to mainly just work with kids and young people. And when I would meet with parents, there was often an expectation of like, you are spending this time with my child and they have depression or anxiety or whatever, and I want you to be helping them. Some parents would have the opinion of help them, and some parents had the opinion of fix them. And sort of like I'm a magical fairy, and I would just go like bibbidi bobbidi boo and just sort all their issues just dissolve and disappear. And what I realized was, one, that's an unfair realization, or expectation. And what it felt like was I was given this 1 hour a week. Now, mind you, there's 168 hours in a week. And there's this 1 hour in the week. And that is when I am supposed to suddenly, minimize the 167 that they have outside of the room and make everything go away. And I appreciate the belief that parents have in us clinicians. I love that. I think that's great. That's a privilege. But it's also like just so unrealistic. So what I started to notice is when I started to work with parents instead of kids, that's when I really started to notice massive shifts in behavior. Because if you think about it, adults are able to maximize that 168 a lot more than children are. And they have adults have a fully developed brain. They have more impulse control. They have a fully developed cortex, which means that they can engage in things like forward planning and logic and reasoning and motivation and productivity, all that stuff. Whereas kids, that part of the brain, the cortex, the prefrontal cortex, isn't fully developed yet till 25 or onwards. So it was kind of clear to me that the bang for your buck of how much effort could be put into a family and then what kind of output you could get was way better spent on parents. So doing that then, and the other thing that was sort of a catalyst for me was this one day where I had like all of these girls and women across the lifespan. So it was like my first client of the day was like 6, and then my last client of the day was 62. And all throughout there, I had a teenager, someone in their 20s, someone in their 30s. I literally like covered the lifespan in a day. And it was just weird because like it's 7 different people, different walks of life, different childhoods, different backgrounds. And at the end of the day, I was just sort of stunned at how many of those 7 people had stories that we were talking about in therapy that were connected to their childhood or connected to how they were parented. And it just sort of struck me like I felt like I was watching someone sort of grow up during a day. And it just made me realize like there's so much pain and suffering that happens in life, right? Isn't it like a fantasy? Like, isn't it a dream for all of us that we are equipped and have all of the tools, or our caregivers have all of the tools so they can support us through the inevitable pain and suffering that comes in life, right? wouldn't it be cool if all of our caregivers when we were born were given this, like, here, like, instead of a receiving blanket and a rattle, parents are given, like, here's all the tools to battle the, like, social, emotional, psychological well-being stuff of parenthood that is going to come at you throughout your kids' lives, And I realized that the stuff I was teaching clients that were 6 and the stuff I was teaching clients that were 60 or 62, this client in particular, were like a lot of the same stuff. They were just, I used different language or I used different analogies, but it was really a lot of the same basic concepts. And then I started to reflect on how, hang on, everyone all in between was the same thing. It's kind of the same concepts, like understanding the brain, learning how to regulate emotions, learning how to manage stress. What is anxiety? What do you do with it? How do you navigate it? Right? All of these things just sort of stood out to me that, like, these are all teachable. Like, you don't come out knowing these things, if you're not taught these things either by parents or school or a book or a program or something. Most people don't know this stuff, right? So I got thinking, I am going to start taking notes on, like, what's the stuff that I talk about all the time? What's the stuff that I, like, hear myself saying all the time? And I wrote that down. And then I put them all on Post-it notes and I sort of organized them all of, oh yeah, that's a bit similar to that. And that's a bit similar to that. And I grouped them. And then I realized, like, I say the same stuff all day, every day to different clients of varying ages, but it's the same kind of messages, the same kind of themes. And I just found it was just sort of all applicable across the lifespan. These things that I've learned personally, professionally, academically, in my practice, so stuff that works, stuff that doesn't work. I've been kind of learning that over the last 20 years of my career in working in mental health and other jobs and stuff that I've had. I've taken a lot of learning from all those things and then realized this is teachable and I could put this into a course. And so I built a course with all the different modules going into all of the things that are basically the things that I hear all the time from parents, and just realized that it was, stuff I could educate parents on and make their lives easier. And then essentially make that 168 awesome, because then in that 168 hours in a week, because the parents have the skills and the tools and because the parents are equipped, they then feel capable. They then feel empowered, confident, happier, safer, calmer. And that was really cool to start to roll it out and to be teaching these parents and then to see what happened. And it was, like, beyond my wildest dreams in terms of the outcomes that we were getting with kids and changes to behavior and changes to relationships. Parents telling me things like, I used to hate spending time with my kid and now I actually like spending time with them. Or my kid never listens and now they're listening. And it's like the ratio is reversed. It used to be that they listened to me 1 out of 5 times and now they're listening 4 out of 5 times and not listening 1 out of 5. So it was just really cool. And I guess really validating that my hunch was right, that empowering and equipping parents was like the secret sauce. Like, it's the parents that are the secret sauce to helping kids. That's not to say that mental health professionals are useless for kids. Obviously not. Like, do it. If you can, afford to do all the things and do therapy for your kid and books and programs, like, rad. But I totally appreciate that that's not everyone's financial situation or time situation, that they would have the ability to do that. Right. So it's important to me to provide a way that people can get a lot of support and help in a more cost-effective way, and with a lot of support, like a lot of touch points, like a lot of Heidi time is what I call it. Because in the program we have a Q&A call twice a week, but that's an opportunity for people to check in with me and feel supported, because so many of us, I think, are really alone in our parenting. Like, a lot of parents tell me they're alone in their own home with their parenting, that they feel like they're the only one who parents a certain way, or they may be the only one in their whole community or in their family. And so it's hard for them to try to implement some of the stuff I say, because the concept of, like, respectful parenting is just bananas to a lot of other generations, and a lot of cultures and religions think that being respectful to a child is just crazy talk and just silly. You don't give kids choices. You just tell them what to do. You're having the red cup, not do you want the red cup or the blue cup, And I appreciate that. I get that. So having me sort of like one single mom said to me, I feel like you're my partner. And now I can check in with you. And Heidi, what do you think about that? And this thing happened at school with my kid, or, bedtimes, this is happening. What should I do? And knowing that they can talk to me twice a week to like check in on, what do you think about this? So many parents have said, especially single parents have said, it just makes me feel less anxious because I know that I have that call with you every week to touch base. And then also because it's a group call and I can listen to the other parents, I then learn all this other stuff by hearing other people's problems and learning from them. So it's like I get a bonus. I sort of get to learn my own stuff, and then I also get to learn from other people. And for those of you that have never done group stuff before, I always say to people, like, just give it a shot before you knock it, because like a lot of things, we think like we have preconceived ideas about what stuff is going to be like. And then what usually happens is it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. But what most parents have said to me about the group dynamic is it's actually better. I'm curious to see what Sally says today. But one of the things that a lot of parents say to me is when I say, what surprised you about the program? They say the group calls, I thought I wasn't going to like them, and I really liked them. And that really surprised me. And I learned a lot from the group calls. Some people have said that they found they learned more from the group calls than the program, like the actual content and the teaching, because it was real life, back and forth kind of questions and stuff. And that was where they would just listen to the calls twice a week. And if they couldn't make it live, they would listen to the recording. And it was just sort of their weekly sort of personal development. They're just constantly doing that. Similar to, like, I guess if you go to the gym and you do your run, or you do your regular routine that you have as a part of your movement and exercise, just listening to the Q&A calls while I'm washing dishes or folding laundry or driving around in the car. Because we have an app, so you can listen to the replays easily on the app. And so people would just listen to it that way. And then that's how they sort of stayed in that like accountability, momentum, consistency of getting all of the stuff I teach kind of just ba 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 in your ear all the time to kind of keep you on the path, And I think what I like to try to remind ourselves is, like, parenting isn't an overnight fix. Like, obviously I would be a gajillionaire if that was the case, if it was just, a couple of things and, and it would have been done by now. Like, someone else would have figured it out. But it's a process, I think, of like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, that you have those days where you're like, I'm awesome. I've not yelled. I'm so calm today. And then you have the days where you're like, I yelled all day. I was so grumpy. I was shaming them constantly, and I took massive steps back. And those days are hard. And we all have them right here. I have them all the time. We all have them. I think the goal, or my hope with this work and with this program, is I view it sort of like a spectrum, that like, this is where we are, and this is where we want to be. And the where we are is different for everyone, right? Based on how you were raised, your background, your privilege, demographic. Like, there's all sorts of stuff that goes into where you sit, right? My belief is that we just want to aim for here. This is just like the ideal way. I don't want to project myself on you, whatever it is for you. This is the way that I want to parent, and I have that here. And some days I'm like, great. And some days I'm like miles away, and some days I'm here, or that you know what I mean? That's what I kind of feel is what the whole point of this stuff is, like, of parenting development and growth and stuff, is just trying to get to here as often as we can. And one of the byproducts, I think, when we do that is we have less pain with our kids. We have less suffering, like moments of suffering with them. So what does that mean? Less tantrums. And I think, like, what if you have, like, so if right now you have 10 tantrums a day, or let's say you have 5 tantrums a day, wouldn't that be rad if you could just knock it down by 2 or 3, and you then have like half, or maybe, a quarter of what you're having now? Because I'm not saying that the stuff that I teach is going to like eradicate everything and everything will be perfect, and like you'll be the dream parent and your kids will be the dream children. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I can help you make it better, a lot better. And some parents have said words like game-changing, life-changing, which always makes me feel like a little bit, that's a really big call. But a lot of people say that. And I don't think it's so much me. I think it's learning these concepts. And like, when you learn about the brain, and when you learn about the impact of like how you were parented, when you look at the importance of connection and just some of like the fundamentals, and or how we're shaming and how that is so disconnecting and damaging to our kids. I think it's like when I outline these foundational pieces, these frameworks, that is then when you have that knowledge, it just makes all these other things sort of lock into place. I don't think it's so much me, like I'd love to take the credit, but I guess what I pride myself on is maybe synthesizing and taking big concepts and big information and trying to put it in bite-sized, relatable ways so that you can understand it. Because a lot of people will tell me, I've read this parenting book, I've done this parenting course or whatever, and then I couldn't fully get the concepts or I couldn't fully implement it. And then they met me and then they're like, the way you just explained that, I get it now. Okay. I think a lot in analogies. I teach a lot in analogies. I find that is one of my superpowers, is being able to take complex stuff and then synthesizing it into bite-sized like nuggets that you can understand. So that I will pat myself on the back for that. That I think is something that is different. But yeah, so I think, what else did I want to tell you? So we can be doing less meltdowns, less power struggles, one less time that you're at your wit's end and wanting to, scream. That's what I can help you with, is turn the dial down. So instead of being a 10 out of 10, we can take it. In some families, we take it to a 2 and it's like phenomenal. Some families, we take it to a 5. Some families, we take it to a 7. It depends on what's happening in the home, what the neurodiverse situation is at the home, the level of safety at the home. There's like so many things that play into it, but it's possible, I guess, is what I want to say, that we can really improve stuff and we can really change the way that your family is running and change the way that your kids are engaging with you and your relationship with them. So yeah, I mean, even thinking about that, like, what would that be like to have less meltdowns? What would that be like if my kids listened to me a little bit more? What would that be like if I felt more connected to them? And I encourage parents to just fantasize about that. Just think about it, because it's possible. It's totally possible. And I know that from myself, and I know that from all the families I've worked with, but I think that kind of comes back to where this all started for me and why I'm really passionate about this. So in my early 20s, I had my own sort of dark night of the soul. Horrendous period of my life. Was really, really hard. I was very unwell mentally, did a lot of therapy, was very depressed, very suicidal. It was a really dark period of my life. And I started therapy then. And it literally, it saved my life, but it also changed my life. And a lot of the stuff that even today that I teach is stuff that I learned from my first therapist in my early 20s. And I guess what happened for me in that experience was seeing like how much pain I was in and seeing where I kind of was on the end of the spectrum, I guess, of like, if my therapist was like over here, I was like over here, she's sitting in the chair here and I'm on the couch over here in agony. And I guess what I feel like is, if I could go from here to here, being a therapist now, like, it's possible, isn't it, for everyone? I believe it is. I believe change is possible. I think I'd be a pretty crap therapist if I didn't think change was possible. I really believe change is possible. And I really believe that it doesn't have to be so painful. Whatever it is you're going through, I really believe that you can get help and you can get support to change your life and to turn things around, and you don't need to suffer so much. It's sort of the analogy that it feels like to me is someone moves into your house and every day they leave and they're gone for like 5 hours, and then they come back with this big jug of water, and you're like, where have you been? And they're like, oh, I walked 2.5 hours that way to the well. I filled up my bucket of water, and then I had to walk home. And I kind of want to say, like, but there's a tap, there's like a faucet right there, and there's one in the kitchen, and there's one in the bathroom, and there's also a hose outside. You don't need to walk 2.5 hours each way to go get water. And they're just like, what? Like, they're in their 30s or their 40s going, but that's how I've always done it. And I feel like that's a lot in therapy, that people will say, but this is how I've always done it. This is how I've managed anxiety. This is how I've managed depression. This is how I've managed my kids. This is how I've dealt with bad behavior. This is how I've dealt with good behavior. This is how I've dealt with them not listening. That's just how it is, right? parenting sucks, right? Kids are annoying, right? And I'm like, nah, it doesn't. I mean, sometimes, but it doesn't have to be like that, I guess is what I'm saying. Like it's a lot of times it's just skills that we're missing and skills that we don't know. And it's not your fault that you don't know. How are you, like, where are you supposed to learn this? Like last I checked, there's no parent school available. There's no like, you know, baby pops out and then, a doctor goes like, here's a chip that I just downloaded all the software you'll ever need for parenting. Like, no, the parenting school I think that we go to is our childhood. Our parents teach us how to parent. That's where we learn. That's what's modeled for us. But like most of our parents aren't professionals. And so most of us are learning parent school from rookies and people who don't know all the things. And I don't hate on older generations at all, because I think they did the best they could at the time with the information that they had. I think our parents and our grandparents and their grandparents were growing up in a time there was a lot more scarcity, there was a lot more war, there was a lot more fear, there was a lot more trauma going on. And so I don't think the capacity was there. And I think older generations would say that keeping you safe, fed, homed, clothed, educated, that's it. That's all that parenting is. And I think there's an element of that for sure. Keeping our kids safe and looking after them. Yes. But then I think the luxury, the privilege that I think a lot of the later generations that we've had, with less conflict in the world, less war, more safety, more abundance, means that we now have more space and safety and capacity to explore this stuff about parenting and how we're parenting and how we talk to our kids and all that sort of stuff, So I think that's kind of why it's coming out more now in the last, say, 20 years, 10 years, that parenting is like a thing. And again, why I don't hate at all on past generations, because you don't know what you don't know. And the only parenting school that you really attend is your childhood. And that's not anyone's fault, right? Nobody picks that. You don't pick your parents. You don't pick where you're born. You don't pick all of that. So yeah. So I think for me, my own journey, my own path of seeing the value of mental health, the value of therapy, the value of intervention, the value of just getting support from a professional. I'm passionate about it. Obviously, like after that, I then went to school and for what felt like a million years to study all this stuff to become a therapist. And then in being a therapist, sort of as I evolved professionally, is how I then realized I really need to be working with parents more and less with kids, and just helping equip parents so that they can then help their kids, right? Because then those 168 hours are a hell of a lot more maximized, aren't they? They're a lot more utilized if a parent has all the skills and tools, bank account, car, flexibility, freedom, brain development, logic, reasoning, all that stuff is accessible to a parent more so than a child. And so the parent is able to then really, really help their child, So that is what felt really, I don't know, like a powerful shift for me in my career, was realizing that parents are the secret and they're the answer of how to really help kids change stuff, And I think it's just a slow process too. Like if I think about my own journey and where I'm at now versus where I used to be, it just takes time. And I think it just takes support and community and having compassion on yourself, that it's not like you're parenting. Nothing is going to just happen overnight. We all know that. You don't get 6 packs by doing sit-ups once, like there's a lot that goes into it. And I use those like physical fitness analogies a lot because I think we get that when we view it that way, but our mental health is exactly the same. Like if you were training for a marathon, you wouldn't just, when's the marathon? September 1st. Sweet. And then, September 1st, you just run outside, lace up your shoes and off you go. No, I mean, you could if you're, phenomenally fit, but most of us would need to start training months and months in advance. What does that look like? Well, one day you do intervals, one day, you're doing hills, one day you're doing, one day a week, you might do a 4 or 5 hour run, right? There's all these conditioning things that you would be doing to help prepare your body and prepare your mind to do that stuff, right? And parenting is the same. Like, so if what you're saying to me is you want to run a marathon, AKA parenting, then you got to train. Like, you just got to train. I don't know what else, like what's the other way that we're all expected to do that. I don't know how we're supposed to be expected to know all the things. And the thing that I think scares me so much about parenting stuff and mental health stuff is we don't know what we don't know. So it's like so many parents have said to me, like with shaming in particular, that they're like, I didn't even realize I was shaming my kid until I saw your webinar. I didn't even realize the way that I was saying, um, you've been sitting at the table for 20 minutes and your sister's been sitting there for 5. Eat your dinner. What are you doing? Parents will say stuff like that to me, like, I didn't even realize that that was shaming. I didn't even realize the impact that was having on my kid until I watched your webinar or had a conversation with you or whatever. And that happens all the time, that parents will say that I didn't even realize blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I know, right? Same, same, same. All of us have that experience. But that's also why I think this work is so important with me or with someone else, but just doing parenting development, doing parenting work, because we have so many blind spots and we don't even realize that we're doing stuff that is hurtful or shaming or not optimal for their self-esteem or for their emotional literacy, to just build them up with understanding their inner world and understanding their feelings, how they think, why they think. We don't come out like that. Like, that's stuff we have to learn. Or maybe a better term is unlearn, because so many of us, the things that we came out believing, like I can say what I want, I can ask for what I need, I can talk about how I feel, we were then taught and conditioned by our culture, society, family, parents, whatever, teachers, coaches. We were taught, no, that's not true. All I want is obedience and compliance. What you want and what you want and need doesn't matter to me. What I want and need as the grown-up matters. Shut your mouth, sit down, do your work, go to your room. Nobody cares what you want. You don't matter. You're just a kid. Like, all of that messaging we then learned, internalized, and took in. And so I think a lot of what we're all doing now is unlearning. We're unlearning a lot of that conditioning. We're unlearning a lot of that stuff that was drilled into us when we were little or young people. And so I think, to the point when people say, why can't I change? And why is this so hard to stop yelling? Or why is it so tricky? Well, because first of all, you're unlearning. And just think about that. Like, think about if you had to unlearn how you walk or unlearn how to drive. Like, it's a weird kind of concept, because so much of it is default. So much of it is just automatic, right? So first you have to unlearn, yikes. And then you have to learn something new. It takes the brain time. And so that's why the program too is 10 weeks, because it's like, don't expect yourself to like do a 1-hour webinar with Heidi or a 3-part training series last week. And it's like, oh, my parenting stuff is solved. Like, it doesn't work like that. In the same way that you wouldn't train for a marathon 3 times or 4 times. Do you know what I mean? It takes time. And the 10-week jam is to support you, scaffold you, get you going for that. That's why it goes for 10 weeks. Because I don't think it's fair to think that you can do all of this stuff and all of this transformation in like an hour or 2. Come on. Like, I love the ambition that you think that you can do it in I read 1 book, I watched 1 webinar, but like, come on, we're unlearning everything we learned in childhood and then relearning something new. Like, I appreciate your ambition, but like, you got to be kinder to yourself, man. Have more compassion. It's not that simple. That's not that easy. Yeah. And the other thing that I'm really passionate about too, I think, in working with young people and seeing young adolescents in a lot of pain and suffering. And obviously, as they get older, it gets more intense, it gets more extreme, it gets more serious, right? As our kids get older, in terms of when they're in pain and when they're in suffering, what they're capable of, from running away to self-harm, drugs, alcohol, whatever, getting themselves into risky situations. That all changes as they get older. And again, in working with young people, I realized I really need to be working with the parents so that when these moments happen with their children, they know what to do. But then ideally, what if we go further back and then we can prevent that stuff happening, right? Because if a child is connected to their parent, if a young person is connected to them, the likelihood of them seeking out connection from their peers or seeking out connection from society will be less, because they will be getting that need for connection and belonging in their family and in their home. Of course, it's developmentally appropriate. Teenagers at that age, that's a huge part of their jam, man, is they want to belong and feel connected to their peers. Yes. But if the parents are meeting a lot of that need, where the child feels connected, seen, heard, valued, appreciated, respected by their parents, the likelihood of them getting more of that kind of bucket filled by their peers or society goes down. Does that make sense? So that's another thing of, I guess, why I want us as their grown-ups to be their greatest influence. And we can't influence them. They won't listen to us. We won't be connected to them if we're just focusing on control and shaming and getting them to listen and obedient and compliant. Whereas if we focus on connection, the relationship, influence, then they will listen to us. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I will add Miss Sally into the stream now. I just saw you log in. Hello, hello.
Hi, Heidi.
Hi. Now let's get this going. Hello, my dear.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, good. It's so good to see your face.
It's good to see you.
Thank you for being here. I know going live, I know my heart races and it makes me sweat. So I know for someone, and I do it all the time, that I appreciate you making yourself feel uncomfortable to be here.
Pleasure.
I owe you one. So yeah, one of the stuff I guess I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about was, because you've done the program.
Yeah.
I feel like people hearing from you versus me means more, I guess, because you didn't come into it with a, master's degree and a psych background, like where all of this stuff, like the language rolls off your tongue, or you were raised by parenting experts, So can you just tell us a little bit, I guess, about, let's start at the beginning, maybe, of like what was going on for your family, the challenges. So before you joined, well, maybe we just start there. Before you joined, what was sort of happening that made you kind of want to like reach out and join?
We had 3 children under 3, and each child has very specific personality traits and needs to the other. So I found with their ages so close together, I couldn't help one without sacrificing the other, and it was causing so many problems, and we were fighting, my husband and I. It just, the older they got, the more challenging it became. So I think I heard you just say before, you can't control them anymore. You can shove them in a cot or lift them up and carry them physically, and that works for a little while. But then these little people, they're now 8, 7 and 5, and it became, I lost the control, and it was out of control. We were horrible. The older they got, the worse it was becoming. I felt like I was drowning, and then subsequently at home it was just really unpleasant and just felt like something had to give. I just found myself searching for answers, and then I found you.
Yay. I'm so glad you did. What do you feel like you had tried that didn't work? Like, because would you have said, I've read the books, I've done, webinars before, or or we've tried, working with coaches, or like, what have you tried before that felt like it wasn't working?
In all honesty, I hadn't tried anything except to parent how I parented, and that was just how I had learnt from mum and dad. So my husband comes from a pretty dysfunctional family. I don't have the best parents in the world. They're fantastic, but they made mistakes. We all do. I do too. Sure. But all we parented was a script of what I knew to do, and a script of remembering back what he did. I remember kids would do something wrong, and I'd be like, oh God, what would my parents do in that situation? And I'd subsequently act like how they went, and it just wasn't working. It was, yeah. That's all I'd tried.
Yeah. And what do you think were some of the roadblocks, like when you were thinking about it? Cost, I'm assuming, is one, because that's always a thing. But what were some of the other roadblocks that maybe you were thinking about, like time, or is it really going to work, or like, what sort of stuff was sort of coming up for you of like, maybe not,
I think the major roadblock was cost, and I sat on it for months as a result. But I think the other thing was just sort of the time, and then when you're so busy and your plate's full and everything becomes challenging, you think, oh God, as if this is actually going to work. This person's asking for money. Is this actually going to? It was mainly just the cost. That was only the real roadblock.
Yeah. I think, and it makes sense, I think, too, the thought of spending money on something that you don't know if it's going to work, right? You buy a car and I'm going to drive out of here with it, right? Like, whereas
you can take it for a test drive.
Yeah, you take it for a test drive, exactly. But when it's something like an educational, it's sort of like getting a degree at uni, and you don't know if you're going to get a job with that, right?
Yeah.
It's that fear of like, I'm going to invest in this, and then I don't know, if it's going to do anything. So then why did you end up joining? So you sat on it for months, you decided to make the leap. Did you have a moment where you were like, one of the kids was like melting down on the floor or something, and you were like, okay, that's it, and you just click purchase because it was just like, I'm done with this? Or was there a catalyst? Was there a moment that made you jump?
I think I just started to hate my oldest. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I think I told her I hated her. She wasn't 8 at the time, but
Yeah.
I behaved so badly. We had an argument trying to get her
Oh.
bathing one night. I've just gotten home from work and I was wound up from work and she was upset about something, and I think I screamed at her that I hated her, and I thought, oh my God, Father, I've just scarred her for life. Something has to stop now.
Yeah.
And everything I'd been trying, I'd been putting up for the cost.
Yeah.
I thought, I don't even care about the cost, because if it means I don't tell my daughter I hate her, then that's fine by me.
Yeah. Yeah. And what would you say has changed? Like, I remember when you first sent me an email ages ago and saying like, it's changed your life and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. Like, it's such a privilege to like do work like this, that is that life-changing for people. But yeah, what I can't remember exactly what you said in the email. You would remember more than I would, but yeah, what has changed? What helped? What worked?
Everything has changed. I have more love and empathy for my kids. I loved them before, but now I love them. And all the bits that I hated about them, it's hard to describe, but I've learnt why they're like that, how they're like that, how I can fix it. I've learnt how to be the person who can hold their hand and lead them through life. I can't even describe how much I love them. I have a better relationship with them. I yell less, which is pleasant.
Yeah.
When you love someone and when you want to be around them, you find yourselves going out of your way to do the best for them and to do everything to make them happy. I'm not saying I just let them do what they want, but I have so much more love and empathy and understanding, and all the things that I used to not be able to get away with that they do as kids. It's like I give them permission to get away with it, and I give myself permission not to be parented the same way that I was parented. And it sounds, you just can't explain it, but it just feels like you've discovered this secret about how to have a harmonious family.
And I think that it's like doable. I think that's what a lot of people think before they join, is like, yeah, this program crap that Heidi's doing, this will work for other people. This won't work for me, is what a lot of parents say. And I love you sharing this because it gives people hope. I think of like, no, it is possible. You are a real human being. Like, and you did the program and you were on the calls and you did the work. And then you get to see the benefit from it. That's so cool.
It doesn't happen overnight, but you see little wins. My younger two are at each other's throats, and they were fighting about some Pokemon cards yesterday. And we both worked shift work, and I'd finished night shift, and I had no sleep, and I was looking after the kids while he was at work, and they were arguing about these Pokemon cards. Honestly, I wanted to rip the cards up and put them in the bin. And I knew that whichever side I took, I was going to devalue the other kids. So if I be nice to one, the other one's going to get upset, and vice versa. And I sat there, and it took every bit of my strength, but I got them to the point where they shared half. They'd gotten, my youngest had said, here, I'll split them in half, and she gave him the bigger packet and she had the little, and then they went off and traded. And I was like, I looked around to give someone a high five. No one was there. And I'm thinking, previously I would have thrown them in the bin and screamed at them. Like, if I can do that after a night shift with kids, it doesn't happen every night, but that's just one less shift. It's one less horrible encounter that I've avoided.
Totally.
Rather than 100% of horrible encounters. And it's like everything with practice, like you just remind yourself, and sometimes you win and sometimes you don't win, but that's like every relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just that reminder, I think, that I can make it better. Right. So you were like, I worked on this, I learned the stuff. And like I was saying at the beginning of the call, it's like you turn the dial down. So like, say before we met, you were at a 10. And then just as time goes on, you just slowly turn it back. And then now where things get intense too, or how often, it's like the frequency of meltdowns, how much you yell, how deep the pain kind of goes. they're more spaced out. It happens less often, and then it doesn't go as deep. It's just a bit shallower. And I think what it feels like is like you can breathe more. Like I know when I learned a lot of these concepts and stuff, it just felt like in my parenting, I got it a bit more.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Everything goes through everything goes through to the keeper. I used to get worked up about the tiniest things. And now I just think it's no biggie. And it's over in a minute. The thing that I would have made a big deal about, I don't make a big deal anymore. And it's finished. It's over. It's like this golden recipe to this amazing meal. And, you don't want to become a sort of born again and try and tell everyone about it. But you find yourself looking at other parents and the way they parent, you go, oh my God, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Not that I know what I'm doing.
I know. But what a lot of parents tell me is they can't unlearn it, right? Once they've seen the stuff that I teach, like say with shaming, they'll go, oh, people shame everywhere. I'm like, I know, right? They're like, I'm in a restaurant, a grocery store, school playground, whatever. And they're just like, oh, Heidi, it's like a shame epidemic. There's just shame everywhere. And I'm like, I know. That's why I'm so passionate to teach this stuff. I know. So what does this mean for your family? Like, what if we took a camera in your house now versus, before you did the program, what would the camera pick up now? What would the videographers see in your home now? What's the change? So less yelling and what else?
Less yelling. It's more peaceful. Everyone's happier. Everyone's closer. We have a closer relationship. We put emphasis on things that we never used to really put emphasis on. We put ourselves on the back burner for the kids. I know how that sounds, but when they're happy, you end up being happy. You can see that their buckets are filled. I had parent-teacher interviews this week and no one's kicking goals. And I said to them, look, we're not doing this and we're not doing that. I said, I don't care. I said, I realize, life will even them out. Life will level them out. But I'm not enforcing these extracurricular stuff for learning outside school. I said, as long as they go to bed feeling loved and happy and safe and secure, that's all I care about. And the teachers are looking at me sort of, okay, I don't think they were expecting that, but that's how I feel. I don't care about anything as long as they feel happy, because life, they're growing up so quickly. I started it, what was that, 18 months ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And I just, it's happened so quickly. It's not going to be long before they're gone. And, when one of them does do something wrong, which they all will, I want them to be able to say, oh gosh, Mum, I really messed up here. Can you help me? Rather than be scared because I've given them a hard time. For my son scales the kitchen bench and steals all the naughty food that's up the top. And I want to walk in and scream at him. And I go, could you just be careful getting down from there, please? And I think, like if I scream at him, he'll hide things from me. I think one of the things that you taught me, and I say to them all the time when I'm trying to catch them out or trying to figure out what's going on, I go, you're not going to get in trouble for lying. No one gets in trouble for lying. And then they come clean, and then I give them a kiss and a cuddle, and I address it with them later. And it just changes everything. They don't feel scared. They can come to you. They can be honest. They can tell you about their friends.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it with my 8-year-old already when she's entering that phase of, they're sort of pulling, some of her friends are pulling away from their parents, and you think, I think the other favourite thing that you said was your kids become a certain age and you'll be fired as management material, and then you can be hired as a consultant, but that's only if they like your management style. And I don't want that to happen.
Yeah. I think about that analogy all the time when I'm working with families that have kids that are like 11, 12, 13, like really stepping into that tween teen stage and really finding their voice and their independence, and I keep saying to them, like, you've been a manager up until now, but you will be fired. And then if you want to interview and be rehired as a consultant or an advisor or a guide, they will consider it, but not if you're just a dictator. If you just are all about punishment and control and cracking the whip, then you won't get rehired. So I think that that's cool that you're already implementing that, because then that means that when they get to be that age, they will want to talk to you. They will want to connect with you because they've had this connected, open relationship with you the whole time. That's cool. What surprised you? Is there anything that since starting the program or at the early days, what has surprised you as a takeaway? One of the things I was saying earlier is that the Q&A calls, a lot of parents have said to me that that was something that surprised them, that they didn't think, I'm not really a group person, but that they've gotten a lot out of those. That's one thing I've heard from people. Is there anything for you? What would you say is something that surprised you in the program or in your learning?
I'm not really a joiny type person. I don't really like group activities. And so the Q&A calls, I was like, oh, whatever. And really, well, it didn't suit with home to join in, but I listened to the replays.
Yeah.
And I got more out of those Q&A sessions, I reckon, sometimes than the course itself, because whatever you taught in the course would come up again in the Q&A. And there might be a specific question that you could relate to, and it was just the constant reinforcement. So I'd listen to them driving to work, driving home from work, at the supermarket. It was like this but it really, really helped. That, as far as the course goes, the Q&As were great, but I think the thing that surprised me probably the most is how it's changed me. I think I'm a better person. It's given me, I've learned so much about myself and about the person I want to be, and then it's up to you. Do you follow that and, see that through? But I've learned about other people. Someone was angry at me the other day, and we were talking, and I said to my husband, come on, they're not angry. I said, what are they sad about? And so it just, it's really difficult to explain, but I learned so much about myself and so much about other people. So as subsequent of that, my relationships have changed. Yeah. And any dysfunctional relationships, I'm able to sort of really keep a distance from or see it for what it is. My husband and I get along better because we're not fighting about the kids as much. We still do, but not as much. Yeah. Just it's not just a parenting course. It's sort of a life improvement. If you want to, you don't have to delve that far into. You can just do the parenting stuff and leave it at that. Yeah. But if you want to take a little bit further, you can, and it just makes you a better person. Want to be a better person, and it just, it's hard to explain.
I love to, whenever anyone who's joined goes and sort of corrals other people and evangelizes to other people, because I know one of the things that was a real, I took as a real compliment was when your sister joined, and it made me feel so wow, because here are two sisters who grew up in the same home with the same parents. So what her parenting experience was like, right? Yeah. And because you're close, you see how she parents, stuff today. So it was so cool when I think one of you emailed me and said this, and you said, this is my sister's training. I was like, wow, that is such a compliment, because we care so much about our family and we want our families to have great things. And I think it's like when you find a good pizza place or a good shoe deal or whatever, you want to tell everyone about the shoes, you want to tell everyone about the pizza place, because you found something from it. So when I heard that you had got your sister to join, I was like, wow, that's a really cool compliment. It really has meant a lot to you that you got your sister involved, so thank you for that.
That's okay. And I know she gets so much out of it as well. You're right, I was seeing her parent, and you don't want to be critical of other people. I'm like, oh my God, I can see all the things that you're doing wrong. Yeah. And I think as a result, it's changed her relationship with mum and dad too. I think she can probably see things a little differently than what they used to. But one of the reasons I suggested to her to join is when I saw the sibling rivalry thing. And I was like, if you listen to that, it might not just help you with your kids, but it also might just explain a little bit about your relationship with me and mine with you. So you can't teach someone this stuff without delving and giving the background. And of course, if you give the background, that just opens up more doors if that person's willing to. Yeah. So
Totally. A lot of people have said to me that one of the surprises as well that they got was that exactly what you just said, the surprise sort of bonus of it helped my relationship with my mom. It helped my relationship with my dad or siblings, because by learning a lot of this stuff, it made me realize what was sort of going on behind the scenes. Like, it's as if the program gives you some sort of like cheat sheet, you know, into understanding why people are the way they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's then a kind of gift that you then, holding that knowledge, you then go into interacting with these people going, I know why you're doing that. Like you said, you're not angry, you're sad.
You're
What's the
sad.
sadness there, you know? Yeah.
And so that can't help but affect work relationships, or, maybe other family members, and they might give you the irrits for some reason. You think, God, it's not directed at me. It's just this little sense of freedom for you to become who you want to be. You don't have to be chained back to the past or who you used to be. And then you sort of really, think about, why do we have kids in the first place? Probably because we're the stupid ones who think, oh no, but for us it'll be different. For us we'll do. No, it doesn't take long before you realize you're no different. You're struggling like everyone else, but you have them because you love them and you want to give them the best opportunity possible. So that's, I don't know how more people don't know about it, or how it's not sort of so much. I know the research is only sort of coming out, but I don't know how it's not bigger than it already is, because it's just such a big deal. And it really, I wish I'd done it before they were born.
I know. I have some parents who've joined the program that have babies. Some have been pregnant, some have had newborns. And I've just been like so excited to think that like you don't have as much to unlearn like we all do with older kids, you know, because they are starting so fresh. I think, my dream would be that, like, you know, when you leave the hospital and you get the little bag of like pamphlets and like wipes and stuff, like that you leave with just like the parenting program, like here's a membership to it. Here, get yourself in, and they can just start learning then. I know, gosh, that would be the dream, to get in before. Like that's serious prevention. Like that's getting in at the beginning. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
I'm so glad you took the time to do this. I really appreciate that. And I think what you said, I hope, was really helpful for other people. And so I appreciate you. I appreciate you taking the time and making your heart rate go up and sweat to do this.
You're welcome.
And I will see you soon, I'm sure.
Thank you, Heidi.
Thanks. See you, Sal. Bye. Oh, that was fun. Hey, those of you over on Instagram, I just thought one of the things that you could be doing too is getting over to Facebook, because over in Facebook, you will be able to see the people who I'm talking to, or on YouTube. I'm live on there as well. I'm using an app that the live is streamed on YouTube and on Facebook. So if you are on Instagram, you might want to jump over there, because then you can actually see the people that I'm talking to. Oh, thank you for that. That's a beautiful comment. That was beautiful. Well done to you both. Thank you. Good work, Sal. We're getting high fives here from the people. So anyone who's on Instagram, head on over to Facebook or YouTube, because I'm going today until, what time are we going? I think we're going to 1 today. So yeah, I basically just want to use this time to answer questions and see what I can help explain about the program, or just share some insights about it to see if it's a good fit for you. And so if you are not sure, let me know. I will also jump over into Facebook to see if I can see some comments, because I don't see any comments appearing on my screen here. So maybe my admin crew can help me with that, to let me know how I can see comments. Also, the link is in my bio. Those of you on Instagram, link in bio to see more about the parenting program. Facebook and YouTube, you can go to, I don't know what the actual link is where you should go. All last week we were talking about the parenting reset, so that's what's drilled in my brain. So maybe you can let me know, team, what short link you want me to be telling to people. There's also a short link that should be coming up on my screen, but is not. So let me see if I can do that. Aha, there we go. I'll go that. So then Total Parenting Transformation is the name of the program. And then I think in that bottom corner, parenting program, click to join here is where you can click or tap to see more, learn more, because the cart is open today. And we will keep it open until Thursday at midnight. And yeah, so Thursday midnight is when we close this, close the program. So I hope you can get in. Yeah, is the content videos available after the course is over? Yes, you own it for life. So I have some parents who did it years ago, and then when their kids were, say, 8 and 10, and then they've done it again through older years at ages 10 and 12 or 12 and 14, as their kids got older. They did the program to kind of get a different take on it. Because I think when you watch it and you consume it when your kids are little, it's different, right, than the content and stuff that you're paying attention for and looking for when they're older. It's applicable to all. Like I said, I have people in the program who have babies, who have high schoolers, who have kids in their 30s. I've had grandparents do the program. And what everyone says is it's applicable throughout the whole lifespan. It's just when you listen to it, you're listening to it for different things, right? If you're listening to it with a 2-year-old and you're listening to it with a 12-year-old, the way that you process what I say will be different. So that's why we give it to you for life, because that way you can use it again and again and again. And a lot of parents will tell me, I was feeling a bit rusty on anger, or I started slipping into old patterns, old behaviors. And so I watched the anger module again, or I just have been listening to it again and again and again. Or my kids have been fighting more recently, like say with lockdown last year, a lot of parents were saying to me, oh, it was so great to have the sibling rivalry module to listen to again. Or my kid just got busted vaping at school. So I was able to watch the discipline module again to help know how to handle that. So it's kind of, it's a broad program, but very comprehensive, and it will answer your stuff. It's just what mindset you're going into it with, what age you're looking at, Is the program useful for parents of spicy kids? Yes, very helpful. And I think what people would say to that is it is where it's really helpful is the community aspect and the not feeling so alone. I have a lot of parents that have said to me, the tears that they have cried being on Q&A calls or in the Spicy Parents Club, which we're making Spicy Parents Club. We did the first one a month ago, as I think Beck. I think you were there. And we decided that we're going to just have that be a part of the program. So if you're in the program, you get that for free. And yeah, we just thought it's just, and what we have found from so many parents of spicy kids, that what they've said is, I have felt so alone until hearing the word spicy and learning about it and meeting me and meeting the other parents in the program. It's just, they've said that's just been the greatest gift, is just not knowing now that I'm not alone, and knowing that my kid's not broken. They are just wired differently. And now I feel like I have a space and a community of people who get it and don't shame me or tell me, have you tried just validating their feelings? They get it now. So yeah, so definitely. The thing is, though, what a lot of people say is what TPT is good for is because it's foundational. What I would say is you use it as your foundational learning of how to change your parenting. You use the Q&A call and to get the content, the learning, right? Then you use the Q&A calls to ask your specific questions and to get that specific support and that specific unique stuff of whatever your unique experience is going on, right? And then in that as well, then you have Spicy Parents Club, you have the dads group, you have all the other, so any of the other video webinars that I do, like the COVID kids, how, the pandemic's impacting kids, you get all that stuff in it as well. So any kind of webinar or whatever that I will put out, TPT students will get access to that for free. It's a part of the program. Are there tests to do to determine if your child is neurodivergent? Yeah, definitely. And you can meet with a psych to go through that. Or is spicy more of a personality type, AKA highly sensitive? I've seen both. I've seen a lot of spicy kids that are definitely ADHD or ASD. But I've seen both. I've seen kids that are also spicy that they don't strike me as neurodiverse in the typical sense of ADHD, ASD. To me, I just feel like we're all so unique, like we all are on a spectrum of what is normal and different behaviors and stuff like that. And so to me, I think when you say, is my child neurodiverse? I think we're all just different and we're all wired differently. And so to me, it doesn't feel like that's the question of, no, it is the question if we're looking for funding or we're looking for different kinds of supports or diagnoses that will help insurance support and stuff like that. But for me, I think I would definitely meet with a psych and you could do a whole thing of assessments. But for me, what I found with a lot of parents is it doesn't matter if they're kind of like, it doesn't matter if I have the label. Like, so let's say my kid has ADHD or ASD, they've got the diagnosis and we did a formal assessment. The issue though is like, you still have to get them in the bath. You still have to get them in the car. You still have to leave the house to go to school. You still have to get them to like get dressed and do their homework or like go to parties and do stuff. So to me, the way that I view how I handle spicy kids or neurodiverse kids is they're neurodiverse. Okay. This is what we have to do. Like, these are the strategies. These are the techniques. It doesn't, the label on the forehead, the diagnosis doesn't change anything for me, really. It helps maybe inform, but I just kind of go, when a parent tells me some of the behaviors, I'm like, oh yeah, they're spicy. And that then to me is their brain's wired differently. That's how I kind of label it in my head. Because yeah, I've definitely seen, but the thing that's hard is highly sensitive children, ASD, ADHD, and then kids who are neurodivergent, they all have a lot of overlap, right? There's a lot of shared behaviors and traits. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's very hard to sort of go, where does one start and where does one finish? But I love assessments. I think they're great. I think it just depends on what you kind of want to do with it and what the purpose is. Yes, if you want to find out more, you can click in the comments section. There should be, or in my bio, both will take you to the program page, is what my team is just telling me in the chat pad. And the format too, I'll just go over that really quickly. So it's 10 modules, and in the modules is the comprehensive sort of learning, the teaching, the strategies, the skills, the practical stuff is in the modules. And then twice a week we have Q&A calls, and those are recorded. You can submit your question before. So if our time zones don't line up, or you just like don't want to listen to it live and you want to fast forward or whatever, you can submit your question before, I answer it, and then you listen to the replay. So that's another option of what you can do. And the calls are Monday, Wednesday, which for Australia, and in the States, that would be Sunday. What did that be? Sunday, Tuesday. And that also is on the program. Yeah. And so, here's my link, HeidiLinks.com/TPT. So HeidiLinks.com/TPT. Cool. And I will jump over to my buddy, Vanessa. Let me just get you all lined up and in my feed, and I will hide this one, hide that, and I will get us all lined up. Hello, friend.
Hi. How are you going?
Yeah, good. Thanks for being here.
No worries.
I appreciate you. Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, Vanessa is awesome. Vanessa is a fellow clinician. We used to sit next to. What'd you say?
I said that's a nice intro.
Vanessa and I used to sit next to each other when we worked in a sexual abuse counseling and prevention program. We sat next to each other as fellow clinicians, and we bonded because we're both American living in Australia, which is a rare thing to have in this country. And Vanessa, I refer a lot of clients to Vanessa. Vanessa has a program called the Body Food Freedom Project, and I highly recommend checking out Vanessa's stuff or listening to our podcast episode if you want to learn more about what she's about. But in today's capacity, I thought we would, and Vanessa's also a parent herself of a teenager, so I thought we would go over, I guess, some of the stuff of your perspective, I guess, as a mom and as a clinician, and having worked in mental health for 20 years and working with kids and young people and parents and grandparents. I thought it would just be kind of interesting to just, I don't know, pick your brain a little bit on, why do you think people need to be given strategies? Why do you think people need to learn this sort of stuff? Like, I think we all come out with the belief of like, we should know how to do this because, my parents were fine. I was spanked, but it's okay. Like, I came out okay. Why do you think, in your personal and professional opinion, we need kind of help with parenting? What are your thoughts?
Well, I do like to share because obviously probably lots of people listening are parents. But just like a little bit of an insight into my parenting experience is I had my daughter really young. So young Vanessa went through some things. So I had her when I was 17, and like you said, now she's 19. And so I just have this so much compassion for parents, right? Because it's not an easy job. It doesn't come with a handbook. I wish I had something like what your program is. Brianna was little, but I also like to say this because I had no idea what the hell I was doing when I was 17, 18, 19 with a freaking toddler and then starting kindergarten. No idea. But I learned along the way. And so I love to say, when we're thinking about strategies and changing our parenting, there is no it's never too late. Like, it's never too late to start making some changes and preparing some things and things like that. And so when I think about, well, why do we need tools and strategies as parents? A huge reason is that we will subconsciously or consciously sometimes repeat the way that we were parented. And there may have been some really good things about how we were parented, but there's often things that we probably go, I wish that would have felt different. We really tune into like, what was that like for that little me to be parented in that way? That can be a good question, right? So I think one is because we are at risk of subconsciously repeating some pretty unhelpful patterns that were modeled to us, not because we don't love our kids, not because we don't want the best for them, but just because our brains tend to move into what feels safest. And what feels safest is the familiar. I think too, parenting really does have this like lifelong impact on our children.
Yeah.
The attachment and the parenting that we get really does kind of, I think I froze, so I don't know if you can still hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. It really does set the template for our children's future kind of friendships and relationships. That is a big job.
Yeah. I know. I think about, as a clinician, like whenever clients will joke with me, like, Heidi, why are we still talking about my mom in therapy? Or why is my dad still content for therapy? And I'm like, same, girl. Like, what do you think I talk about in therapy? Like, same. Like, we all talk about our parents and our childhood in therapy. Like, that's not unique. And I always say to clients, like, dude, if I had $1 for every time the word mom, dad, or childhood or sibling comes up in therapy, it's like, I would be richer than Jeff Bezos, because it's just like that is so much of the stuff that wounds us, and the stuff that we carry into adulthood is stuff that happens when we're little. And it's like, you and I see this all the time, that we're like, it doesn't have to be like that, So I think that's kind of what you're saying. Yeah. Is that it's like, this is in your job as a therapist too. You see this stuff in your body food freedom program, same stuff, right? It's all the messaging and the stuff we learned when we were little, huh?
Yeah. And we, especially from kind of 0 to 7 years old, we soak those messages up like a sponge, and they will shape our truth. And they will shape our core belief. And so, I was trying to think before this call. I was like, have I ever actually had a client come in for therapy where we didn't at some stage address mom, dad, caregiver? And I don't think we have.
I haven't.
So the core of our wound is, did I feel enough? Did I have to hustle for my worth? Did I have to predict the mood of my mom and dad to feel safe, which often results in anxiety, right? So it's all these questions. Am I enough? Am I loved? Am I safe? And those answers first come from the family of origin, mom, dad, or caregiver.
Yep. 100%. 100% agree. What do you think about, like, because you do the same, right? You have your online program is different, obviously, to mine, and it's for adults. But you run the same thing in that you have a community, you have, the content, like you're teaching them in the modules about stuff. What are your thoughts on kind of that issue? Like, I know you would probably hear a lot of women say things like, I cannot make peace with my body. I can't make peace with food. You crazy lady. I've read all the books. I've done a million diets, and we were talking about on the weekend about that kind of trifecta of having, community, professional guidance, and the personal responsibility and the I'm doing it kind of thing. And I find with parents and parenting, or really with any client and like changing behavior, yeah, you can do the personal responsibility jam. Rad, go for it. Good on you. You can then get professional guidance going. Yeah, cool. But it's that community piece and like feeling less alone and hearing other people's stories. That's always the piece that I'm like, that's what's missing. Like, that's why you can't change, is because it's so foundational. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? And or if you think it's bullshit, like, I don't think you do. But like, if you did, I would like you to tell me like what you don't have to just agree with me. You know what I mean? Like, what do you really think about those three things,
Well, yeah, the reason I love talking to you and listening to you is because, it's our programs are similar. Like a lot of foundational stuff in our programs are similar, right? And it is this trifecta that you speak of.
Yeah.
And one thing that I often hear with people coming into any sort of group is like, it's scary. they're like, but you don't understand. I'm going to feel exposed. You don't understand. I'm the worst of the worst.
Yeah.
But the community part, I think, can be so powerful, because when we're thinking, so for our parenting, we can often be shaming ourselves. We might not be aware of it, but we maybe we have a tough day. We crack it at our children. We parent in a way that kind of goes against our value system, which we all do.
Yeah.
But it's the aftermath often is that shame of like, I'm a bad mom. Yeah. I'm a bad parent. I'm useless. I'm worthless. What's wrong with me? Why do I keep doing this?
Yes.
That voice of shame. And when that comes up, we do have a tendency to isolate, think we're alone in our experience. So just the community aspect of that trifecta. And this is like research, brain, body stuff. This isn't like any woo-woo stuff,
So your opinion. Yeah.
It's not just my opinion.
Yeah.
When our brain is faced with shame, it responds the same way it does to a physical threat. And so we're walking around heightened, criticizing ourselves. That definitely has this kind of ripple effect onto our children. And so when we can be in a community where we're met with empathy, compassion, validation, I see it all the time in my group work. It's like a light bulb moment of, oh my God, I'm not the only one. And I like to say, often our heads and our hearts, how you know something intellectually? This is where we can almost roll our eyes and be like, I know that.
Yeah.
But it's like our hearts and our bodies don't quite know it.
Yeah.
That's the shift I see in community is we go, oh, now I know in my soul that I'm not alone. And what research shows us is when that shifts, that's when the magic and the changes and the behavior changes. That's when all this stuff can happen, not before that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing I was thinking with what you do is not just the community aspect, but professional guidance. Like having someone like you with so much personal, lived, and professional experience walking beside people is invaluable, because what I've seen in my own clinical practice sometimes is parents can be driven by anxiety and they're just like seeking information. And it's like fear and anxiety driven. And then they're like, okay, I've read these 12 books and now I don't know how to implement any of this. I just feel worse about myself because I'm not doing it, quote, right.
Yeah.
And so what I love about your program is like, it's meeting parents where they are. Right. And so with that kind of, like I said, lived experience, because you're parenting, you're in the trenches.
Yes, girl. Yes, I am.
With that professional experience.
Yeah. The thing I think about a lot too right now is can't get in anywhere. Like in Australia, like the wait lists, like everyone's closed their books, no one's taking new people. And so what I've said to some parents is like, why don't you just try the program and see how you go with that? And what they all end up coming back to me is, I wish I did this ages ago. I wish I did this during lockdown, because to know I can talk to you, Heidi, twice a week, like good luck getting in anywhere that you could see a psych twice a week and get that like custom, support to ask, like, my kid punched their teacher today. What do I do? Like, good luck trying to find a place that you can get in, so you can get in with that. And then you also have the Facebook community, where you can ask your stuff. Did I tell you that the single moms in the program started their own WhatsApp group? So they have a whole like little community going there. So there's all of these places that you can get all of this support during a time where there's like no support going around. I have you, Christy, and other clinicians who have specialties in different areas on the calls sometimes, answering questions. So it's like, there is so much support that I want to say to people when they're like, I can't get in anywhere. I'm like, just maybe do this just in the meantime, just to get support and get some knowledge kind of going,
But also, Heidi, you know how you have like the group calls in the Facebook group you spoke of?
Yeah.
There can be so much healing and someone else asking a question and you're being like, really?
Yeah.
That's a question they have because that's a question I've been too scared to ask.
Totally.
Or that's a question that I've created, meaning that there's something deeply wrong with me.
Yes.
And so hearing question and answer, that is a beautiful learning and healing experience in and of itself.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Like Sally, one of the students who I had on right before you, she was saying how the catalyst for her when she switched into wanting to do the program was she said, I hate you to her daughter. Mm-hmm. And she was just like, this is not who I want to be. And I think if she had said that on a call, like I said, I hate you to my kid today, what do I do? Every person on the call would have heard that and been like, I've done that, or I felt that, or I thought I was a horrible person for even thinking that. Yeah. So yeah, you're right that you hear other people's stories and then are like, oh, thank God I'm not the only one.
Yeah, you kind of like hear yourself in parts of their parenting experience, even if me and you have so much to relate on, even though my daughter's 19 and you have little ones.
Yeah, totally. It's all well, and that's also the thing I think that a lot of parents have said they were surprised about. The teenage parents have said to me, sometimes when I hear toddler questions, I'm amused at how similar it is to the issues my teenager, like a tantrum. They're like, I've had this so many times that people will be like, a 3-year-old, a parent of a 3-year-old had a question. And then when you were describing the like approach or like what the kid was doing, they were just chuckling, going, that sounds like my 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Like the tantrum, I want to do it my way. I'm my own person, like it's the same.
Except by 15, they know way more than you.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's so true. And I don't know who said it, but it stayed with me that like teenage adolescence can just be a second toddlerhood.
Yeah. Yep. True. And then the other thing I love too is by sharing, to me, it feels more like the village vibe, like how it says the saying, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
I love hearing to people like you who have older kids. I love hearing from people who have 20 somethings.
Yeah.
I want to sit at their feet all day long and just be like, yes, teach me, teach me, teach me, teach me. And I think that's another thing that's so powerful. I remember 2 years ago, we had a mom in the program whose daughter she found an empty vodka bottle in her room. She was 15. Now then you like kind of think about the 3-year-old and the 5-year-old parents and they're like, oh, horrified, like that's coming, but what they all said was, even though my kids are so much littler, I love hearing that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh, that's what you do. And then the how they're sort of able to like extrapolate off of that is, I see now why, Heidi, you're so nuts about connection and relationship and influence, because that's where it can end up. Or another one of that same mom of her daughter calling her when she was 14 and drunk somewhere and saying, can you come pick me up? Yeah. Rather than getting into God knows what kind of a situation. Those are the things, like then when you hear those issues from older kid parents, you kind of go, I get it now. I see the long game,
Yeah, exactly. And I know that's a huge thing you talk about is connection. And if someone said to me, what has been the most important part of parenting Bree, my daughter, is connection. It really is. And yeah. So when
having that relationship,
such a protective factor,
Totally. Yeah. What do you think is the cost of inaction? Like, what do you think happens if you don't do something now? Like, so if someone's watching this going, I'll just wait till things get worse, or I'll just deal with this when they're 13, or, what do you think is the cost of not doing something, not focusing on prevention? What do you think is sort of what do you think happens when we don't prioritize the now? Do you think it's just more suffering and more pain and more tantrums and stuff, or what do you think?
Yeah, that what you said, but also kind of what I was saying earlier is we can kind of fall into patterns without awareness. And the longer we wait, the more those patterns become entrenched in our families.
Yeah.
The internalized messages that our children receive become more entrenched in their psyche. The other thing too is I know people tend to look at the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistic Manual, which has all the mental health disorders listed. It can get quite quite black and white about that. But when I look at the DSM, for example, I'm actually not kind of looking at it just in the way maybe that traditional clinical things would look at that. I would be looking at that going, okay, here's anxiety, here's the criteria.
Yeah.
How did that help you cope at points in your life? And so often it comes back to, I needed the anxiety to cope in my home.
Yeah.
Because like I said earlier, my dad yelled. And so I was anxious to stay vigilant to kind of predict what's coming next. Right. Or now I'm stuck with this sense of perfectionism. Because the only way that I felt that I had mom's approval or love or connection was through performance, through getting super high grades, right? And so parents can be contributing to things that will influence some of these mental health presentations that then we see in therapy. And I don't think parents are doing that because they're bad, but they're often doing it because they're not actually aware.
Yeah.
So the longer we wait, the more those things become entrenched without awareness.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I always think of the term cycle breaker and kind of breaking the generational trauma patterns of parenting or shaming or hitting or punishment or, whatever the pattern is. Knowing that, and so many parents have cried when we've had this conversation where they've just said it's so cool, Heidi, to know that I'm the first parent in my family who's not going to beat my kids, or I'm the first parent in my family for generations who's not going to shame and punish and threaten and manipulate and control. And I'm going to be the first parent in my family to have a connected, loving relationship with their child that's not based on fear. And those, we're all crying when those kind of conversations happen, because it's just so powerful. And to see the legacy, you're being a good ancestor, you're being a good ancestor and setting up generations of healing, of having babies be born that have calmer, more stable nervous systems, in your family down the line, just setting up. You're being a good ancestor by setting up this kind of pattern for future generations to know that we don't do shame in our family. We do connection. We do vulnerability. We do empathy. We don't do that controlly, dominating, dictating, fear. We don't do that in our family. We do respect. We do kindness. We do compassion. To the thought of being a good ancestor in that way is that's so cool, man. That's so cool.
Yeah, and it takes courage to be that circuit breaker. It can be scary. It can be there can be hesitation, but it's an amazing gift to yourself, but also your children, and then like you said, generations to come. So I think that big picture, that's a real cost to not addressing this stuff.
Yeah, and not joining. I know.
Yeah.
I also think too, sometimes it's a bit like Sliding Doors, that movie where it's you don't know what your path is going to look like if you don't do anything, but I can give you a good snapshot of what it will look like if you do it.
Yeah.
From Sally, who we just heard of, and then we have a dad, I think tomorrow, that we're hearing from, and then other parents the rest of this week. I just think man, I know, and you and I know too, with families that we've worked with, when parents don't engage in therapy or they don't want to talk to us or whatever, and we're sort of the only adult that's sort of helping the child along. You and I know what happens when we work with families that the parents aren't on board or involved and stuff. And it sucks. And it's so hard to watch. And it's so hard to it's hard to witness that. I think now if parents are, and whatever the age their kids are, because teenager parents ask me that all the time, like, are we too late? And I'm like, no. Some of the parents who've had like the most profound transformational experiences have had teenagers in doing the program. And I think that it's like just reminding yourself that it's never too late.
Yeah.
I mean, how many of us would you not just die if your parents called you tomorrow and were like, Vanessa, we've been doing this parenting program and we now realize we shamed and we did it, and I'm so sorry. We want to do it different from now on. We want to prioritize connection in our relationship. Like, if all of us had that, and we're, all of us parents now are in our 30s and 40s and 50s, right? And it's like, I'll take that any day, man. I'd be 60. I would love that call from my parents, like all of us would love that from our parents, to that acknowledgement, or like, I want to learn to do it different, or I want to be more connected to you. Like,
yeah. Well, and because I think what we can, again, really deep in ourselves, what we can internalize often is it's my fault. And so regardless of what age, if someone's kind of on the fence about joining this program, am I too late? Have I already done too much damage? No, it's not, because what you're talking about is it's this beautiful repair that can start to happen. And we can shift the messages that we're sending our children that, hey, when I did this or when this happened, so not your fault. Mom has some stuff to work on too, right? And yeah, so it's kind of, it's unburdening our children some things that don't belong to them.
Yeah, that's all. I love that line. We're unburdening our children of stuff that doesn't belong to them.
Yeah, that's a good one. This is what I'm saying. If it was like, okay, now go read this book, you're not going to get that transformation that you talked about, because that it lacks that trifecta. It lacks the professional guidance. It lacks the community. It lacks the all of it, the empathy, the compassion, the normalizing, the knowing I'm not alone, all of that. And the thing that I love about your program too is, which I think we're not going to get in a lot of spaces, is you get to troubleshoot it, right? So you kind of get somewhere where you're like, all right, I tried this, and this is what happened. And it's not always, oh, that was a bad strategy, or you didn't do it. It's just kind of like, well, let's troubleshoot it.
Yeah.
Information gather. Yep. And let's like tweak it and move forward together. Well, that's such a beautiful way than going like, well, this one thing in this book didn't work, so. Right?
I give up. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And having that real time. And that also is a part of what my thought process was in building it, because when I used to just work with parents one-on-one, it was just like, it was too long in between sessions, even if it's weekly or fortnightly or monthly. It was just like way too long in between. Like too much has changed, and I wasn't able to kind of be effective because like 3 weeks had gone by. So the issue wasn't really an issue anymore. But also to have that frequent touch point helps people change more, because it's like going to the gym. If you go to the gym, that's a bad example. What if we said like speaking French, right? Either you do one class, you do an hour of French a week, or you move to France. Dude, you will learn way more French in like a week of living there, right? Than you would in 1 hour a week. You know what I mean? So doing the calls is then what really like, you really learn it when you get on the calls all the time. And it changes you, you know, in that. Yeah.
Something that came into my head, which it is a little bit heartbreaking. So if someone's listening, please be kind and compassionate with yourself if this resonates in any way. But one of the most heartbreaking things for me as a therapist, and I think I could cry thinking about it, is when I have a child or teenager who comes through, and if their parents are on board, we see so much shift for that child, their level of happiness, their level of engagement in life, their courage, their willingness to risk take, right? So much changes. But what's heartbreaking as a therapist is when I'm sitting with a child and teenager, and the acceptance actually has to be, mom and dad and caregiver aren't going to change. I mean, sitting with a child and teenager, and that's the reality, heartbreaking. And then as a therapist, some of what happens is now I have to skill you up to be in an environment where your needs are not being met properly. And I don't just mean food, water, shelter. I mean emotional needs and connection.
For sure.
So now it's kind of skilling you up
Mm-hmm.
to be in an environment where that, even though you desperately need and want that from your mom, you're not going to get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then what I see with those kids is often some improvement comes when they move out. And I just think I think that's heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a real difference. And me and you see this all the time too. It's like, I'll send my child to therapy. They'll see the specialist. They're going to see the most expensive person with the most letters behind their names. And not a thing. and the reality is what you're teaching. Like, actually, the parents have lots of power and hours
Yep.
to support this person in a way that the best, most qualified
Mm-hmm.
specialist once a week
Mm-hmm.
isn't going to do without that.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you.
That's okay.
I'm so glad you were here. I really appreciate. Yeah, that was fun. It was so short. I'm used to our podcasts where we get to talk for like an hour.
I know. I'm going to keep going.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and everyone, please go check out Vanessa, especially those of you guys on Instagram. Vanessa's is it Vanessa _ Preston?
Yeah, it's Vanessa _ Preston _ and
yeah.
We have very similar, like we said, philosophies.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
All right, dude, I will let you go live your life. Thank you for being here, and I'll talk to you later.
Everybody the rest of the day.
Thanks, dude. Bye.
Bye.
So the one question just came through that I wanted to answer that came through earlier on Instagram is, and those of you, by the way, on Instagram, hello. If you want to see the people I'm talking to, just go over to YouTube, my YouTube or Facebook, and you can see the side-by-side. Instagram, unfortunately, just doesn't play nice with the app that I'm using to go across all the platforms. So you can see us there. But one of the questions came through and said, they said, what if my partner's not into it? What if it's just me? And that is so common. I get that all the time. That's fine. We know from research that it just takes one. It's just one parent that is not, we just need one parent to be there. So yeah, it is powerful what you can do as one individual. So yeah, that is the other thing too, is if your partner can't make the content, like the modules are all recorded, right? And you have it for life. So some parents, and you both get a login. Sorry, I should have mentioned that. That's a huge thing, is that you both get access. So it's not just like when we have it, when we do it, it's that both parents get a login. So you don't it's not like you have to buy two, tickets in. So that's one thing. And then across split families, we have that as an option as well. You can talk to us about that if you have like step parents and stuff involved. But what I want to be really clear on is that is totally okay if you're the only parent who's into this stuff. We have a lot of families like that. You are not alone in that regard. The other thing is you own it for life. So it might be that later they come around and they're interested in doing it. So that's one thing. And then if you can't make anything live, that's okay. That's another part of why I set it up this way. You can listen to the replays. So you can submit your question. So something happens today, you submit your question. We have a little form. You submit the question. I then, what's today, Monday? I would answer it tonight on the call. And if you can't make it live, you listen to the replay. So the time zone thing is great for that, like the flexibility of it, that it doesn't matter where you are in the world. We try to make both of the times be that you can catch at least one of them live to suit your time zone, or you can always listen to the replay, but you still get your unique question asked because it's recorded and you can submit them before. I now will cut over to my lovely friend, Christy. Let me just get her all synced up. Hello, my friend.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes.
So Christy is a colleague of mine and a friend of mine. We work together at the same clinic. For those of you that know me and work with me, you have heard Christy's name before because I refer a lot of young people. Christy is the teen queen, I call her. I refer all my teenage clients to Christy. And she also helps a lot with helping me on Q&A calls and stuff. If I have a lot of teenager-centric questions, I get Christy on, and she helps me answer them. I'm also a fellow American. I swear it is not just an American organization over here. She's just another Yank who's married an Australian and lives here. It's really weird that we all found each other. Anyway, Christy, how are you today? I will shut up now.
I'm well, thank you.
Yeah,
Happy to come on.
Yeah, thank you for getting your heart rate going. Because I know it does it for me. Okay, so the stuff I just went through, Vanessa, I want to kind of go through with you as well, the same sort of stuff. As a clinician, been in the game for, almost 20 years. You were a school psych for a long time. So you have that lens of working in schools for a large part of your career, and then in private practice now. You're also a mom of 3 boys, so you get it in the trenches level. Christy's also a student of TPT. She did the program last year as a gift to herself, I guess, during lockdown. And so, yeah, as a TPT graduate, she's done a whole bunch of this stuff, but so understands it from a lot of different angles. But yeah, I guess if we start with just why do you think why do we need to learn parenting stuff? Why do you think we need to be given strategies? What do you say to that voice when people say you should know how to do it? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that it's a really normal thing to think, oh, why do I need this? Why can't I just get it intuitively? But we don't always give birth to children that are just like us. So we have to learn new tricks, new strategies, ways of parenting, because we can't just do, the way that we were parented, which often comes through. And if we had a less than ideal way of being parented, it's hard to just write your own new scripts because you don't know what to do. And so you don't have a whole lot of options if you maybe didn't have the best parenting for yourself as a parent. So you don't know what you don't know. And so sometimes getting like really practical tips and scripts, like I know from doing the program myself that you get through, it's just some really, really great ways of not you don't have to reinvent the wheel. This stuff is there. And it just, that sometimes we don't know how to parent intuitively because we weren't parented that way, and we can't just magically expect ourselves to get how to do it. So yeah, I think that's the tools are so vital when I don't know how to do it myself, and I didn't get parented that way.
Yeah. And then with the group dynamic, Vanessa and I were just saying how we see clients all the time that want to change, right? They want to change behavior, they want to change, they want to stop drinking, they want to exercise more, they want to whatever, right? And this is such a common thing, I think, for all of us in a helping profession. A huge part of our job is helping people change, right? I don't want to be anxious anymore. I don't want to be depressed anymore. Change is a huge part of the work that we do, right? But there's always this point I think we come back to with people where they feel like I'm banging my head against a wall. Why can't I change? Why can't I stop? Why won't my kid change? And I think with parenting a lot, when we catch ourselves acting how we don't want to be, it's like, what is happening? Why am I doing this? And my belief is that you need to have the combination of community. So, and that could be like a support group, or whatever, professional guidance. So like, say if we were doing like grief and loss, a support group for loved ones, who are, bereaved, professional support by having a therapist, and then doing your own work by journaling or meditating or reading personal development books. Like, it always seems to me that the trifecta of having those 3 things is what helps you really change or cope. And that is why that trifecta is so important to me in the program. But you, like, as a clinician and as a mom, I guess, what are your thoughts on that trifecta? Like, do you agree that those are the 3 things, or like, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, totally agree. And because I was one of those people, right? I read all the books. I know all the stuff. I help other people. Surely I know everything. Yeah. No, but because it's sometimes, I find the community component, and I don't know if, I'm sure Vanessa would have maybe spoken about that as well, that you're like-minded people that tell you that this is hard. I get it. I've been there. Me too. Like, you're not alone in this. And obviously with the framework and with the scripts and with the, the strategies, I think it's just a very important component to change. and really quality information for that change. Yeah, so I completely agree with that. I think you can go down any one of those paths individually and maybe not get there. I think so. Yeah, having all three is crucial. It's vital, I think, to change really, and lasting, maintaining that change.
Yeah. Yeah. And why do you think it is that we can't execute? Like, what do you notice with clients when there is no change? I mean, for me, a lot of times what I notice is they can't execute because one of those things is missing. But a lot of times it's that they don't have support. You know, they don't live in a home, or they don't have an environment where they're supported in quitting the thing or changing behavior or whatever. So yeah, like what do you find as a clinician and as like a human, I guess, like what do you find is what makes people not able to change?
I think that we revert back to what we know, because unconsciously too, I think we end up accidentally, slipping back into the behavior, even though we might know something different. We repeat the pattern because we feel stuck, or we feel trapped, and we just in those huge crisis moments or big blow ups or big feelings, we end up reverting back to old ways. So I think the group component of being able to go to a community, a Facebook group, to kind of get compassion too for yourself in that, because this isn't about being perfect. It's just about trying new things and being able to be honest, I think, and going to people to be real and vulnerable, to go, look, that didn't go very well. Can you guys help me? What's the tip? Or how, what are some ideas? And the change is in small degrees. It's in increments, and not to expect overnight change for something that's been around for 18 years. With clients that I work on with the adolescents and parents, I'm like, look, this took a long time to get to where we're at. It's going to take a lot of practice and for change to happen, and getting other ideas from other people that have been through the same thing. Does that make sense? Yeah. Am I answering it?
Yeah. What do you think is the cost of not doing something? I mean, if you think about where you were at before you did the program, like if you hadn't have done it, where do you think stuff would have ended up with the kids, or where do you think professionally with parents, that you're like, man, you guys got to jump now, or I'm worried, like, what do you think is the cost of inaction? What happens if we don't, because you and I both see the same stuff, right? We see families where they've not done the preventative work, and then we're kind of, cleaning up stuff, right? So what do you think is the consequence?
I think it's going to be expensive. I think we always say little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. And I'm not saying that like an extremist, like alarmist, but it's the more you deposit in the bank account of your kids now, I know you've got parents on there with teenagers. It's never too late. I do want to say that, but if sometimes it's like, it's too hard, or, it's going to take too much time, or gosh, it's just a lot, I can't do it. It's like, well, you can't afford not to do it, in my opinion, because you're going to pay somewhere down the line. And I'd rather pay now, like wherever you're at in your life and wherever you're at in the piece, it is worth it. The hard work will pay off. And I think this was before I met you and did the program. I went through it with my second born, and I was like, God, this is really hard, but I put in a lot of work. My husband and I, a lot of work for 2 years. And it's like, we've got a different family. We've got a different relationship. And if you had caught me at the beginning of that 2 years, like, it's hard, like, I can't do this. This is like, oh my God, it's not working. But persist. That change does take time. But my God, I can't imagine not making that choice now with all of the positive change that I've got. So I always say, like, to that question, you can't afford not to do it. Like, you're here for a reason. You click the link for a reason. Like, trust in that. There's something in you that's saying, I can't do this by myself. And there's like, totally, I couldn't either. And I like, people pay me to help me with their kids. Like, it's
Totally.
I just, it's like, you can't afford not to do it. Cause I think about that big kids, big problems, and I want to try to, like, we can't safeguard our kids from all the problems in the world, but if I can do any little thing to try to help them in any small way that I can, I'm going to do it. And that's what I see, like, TPT is doing.
One of the things that I think too, from your perspective of working with teenagers, is I talked about at the beginning, you were probably in session when I was talking about it earlier, but I was talking about the whole 168 hours thing and how parents will drop off their teenager to you or to me and go, here, fix the kid. And it's like, that's ambitious. I really appreciate your confidence in me, but like, I don't have that magical ability. Right. So what are your thoughts too about like parents upskilling themselves and how powerful that is for you as a clinician when you work? Because like we share a lot of families, right? That I'm working with the parents in the program and the young person sees you. What is the difference that you've noticed in the families when you're seeing the young person and you know that their parents are working with me? What is that like for you?
Oh, it's like magic. I don't have to start from square one. You know, I know that, and it's a team, right? You get a team here at like with us collegially, obviously with permission, working with one another. But I know that these things are being reinforced at home as well. You know, it's just such a different, the multidisciplinary framework is the most evidence-based approach. Like, we're not just changing a person, we're changing the whole family and the way the siblings get along. You know, doing this parenting stuff will help how I get along with my kid, but that like beautiful like side effects are, it'll change how your kids get along with each other and how they get along with their teacher and their coach and their teammates at school. Like it is just like, again, and so that's my favorite way of working, is because we're all, no individual is the problem, but we're all responsible for the solution. You know, and so being able to work in that capacity in that way, I think, and it's also the most positive outcomes, you know, positive change that we see as clinicians. You know, that we see real change happen for families where the parents are getting tools. To be honest, I wish I could take every adolescent that I see and get their parents to do your program. Because then I know we're going to really help you guys, you know.
Well, we're on the same page, right? That's the thing is like, then the kids learning stuff, the parents are learning stuff. We're all sort of singing from the same book, that it makes it a lot easier, I think. And the thing that I always say is when parents are like in dire straits and they're really in a crisis point, I'm like, please do it now. Because if you want to expedite this and you want change to happen fast, you do both. You do the program and your kid, you know, is getting support as well. Yeah. And I often wonder, I think too, with parents, if I had met them when their kids were 2 or 3, would we maybe not have ended up here? And $1 million question, who knows? There's too many things that interfere with our lives and all sorts of stuff that we didn't plan on, or accidents or whatever. But I just always think, wouldn't it be great if I know I'm doing everything I can so that when stuff hits the fan for my kid, which it will because we're human and that's life, that I have all of the tools and stuff. So maybe I don't want to wait till we're in crisis. Maybe I don't want to wait till our family is imploding. And I do it now when I maybe don't feel like I have a good enough reason to do it, but I do it now when my brain is calm to learn all these things so that when stuff goes nuts, I feel capable. Yeah.
I 100% agree. Like I feel more equipped to deal with the bigger, you know, problems of adolescence with my children when having done the problem, because I know how to regulate me. I think, and you know, I think that, and the tools and strategies that you learn, that the program gives you to be able to, you know, to be connected to yourself so you can be connected to your child. And that stuff is for any problem, you know, anything that you're going to face. Yeah. So I think preventative work is very important. So when you know you're going to face it, there's something coming. That's the thing I say to all parents. There's something coming and you got to be ready when it comes, and you'll feel like, hey, I can do this. I've got this. I remember that. I know how to handle this. This isn't too big. And that's a nice feeling as a parent. Like, I got this, you know, we'll get through it.
Yeah. And that expectation, I think that you're supposed to know how to do that. None of us came out like that. Like, you and I only know the stuff we know because we went to school for a million years and because we've been doing this work for a long time, but because we read the books, we go to the seminars, we do, we're always learning this stuff. But that's the only way that you learn this stuff is like you learn it. Someone teaches you it. You don't come out knowing it, you know? Yeah. Well,
and the research. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you.
Oh, I was just saying, you know, because the research wasn't there when our age group were parented. So we didn't, like most people didn't know this. So I didn't get given it. Yeah. It's come from reading and searching and, so that's a good point too. You know, you don't just pop out with it.
Yeah. Like it comes from pain. Like if I think about where a lot of my curiosity started when I was working more with kids, it was like I was seeing so much pain and suffering, and just like, how do we go back in time to make this not happen? And that's where I started to get curious about parenting and going, oh, that's how we go back to teach the parents and equip the parents. And then that's how things will change. And I think then also with my own life, it was pain and suffering that led me to discover mental health and therapy and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's just always a let's get on the front foot kind of thing. And that's what I'm really hearing in what you're saying about young people, is that it's not too late and that parents can still do a whole lot of stuff. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, pleasure.
And taking a little bit of your lunch hour to chat to us. And I will talk to you soon.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye. Yeah, so I will just put up a little bit more here of the slide. There's the link if you want to join. Any other questions that you want to have answered, let me know. We got just a little bit more time left. One other question, someone wanted to know, how much is it to get started? You can get started for $97 if you like to. That is the first payment that you could do if you wanted to get going. So we try to make it affordable, and that's 97 US, by the way, US dollars. That we just try to make it affordable for everyone. And we use a currency that is global or easier to equate for people. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we wanted to see. I'll just ask my team if there was any other questions that came through or anything else that I need to answer. But again, you can go to HeidiLinks.com/TPT if you want to know more. I will tell you a little bit tomorrow about what we're going to be doing and who's on tomorrow. Oh no, I don't have my spreadsheet. Do I? Who's on tomorrow? No, I don't know who is on tomorrow. I don't have my spreadsheet up. Or do I? Oh, yes, I do. We have Joe. Joe is a dad who did TPT, and he will be on tomorrow. And that I go live tomorrow at 11, and then Joe is on at 11:15. So if you want to tune in tomorrow, those of you in the States, I can't calculate that in my brain right now at the same time. You could probably check out my website and you could see what the time zone translates to. But yeah, I think that's about it, unless there was anything else that I was going to mention. I think that's it. I'm just really glad that you all tuned in and that you're all here, or if you're watching this as a replay, yay. I'm just pumped that we're opening up the class. I'm excited to see who's joined, who's, had listened to this call, and this has helped them make a decision. And yeah, feel free to send through any other questions that I can answer this week when I go live. I'm going live every day this week, so you'll have time to get your questions answered. And then I think Thursday night, we're going to probably do a Q&A where people can ask more stuff. And see what else is kind of holding you back, or what other stuff you want to know about the program, or if it's right for you and stuff like that. So I might just wrap it up here. Thanks all. Thank you all for coming. And I'll see you in there. Bye.